I think the one thing to remember about Common Core is that Common Core is about a standard. It's about where we want students to be at the end of a year or at the end of a class. It's not about how to get there. It's about where they need to be. It allows freedom for teachers to determine what the path is, to make their instruction personalized to their students, to continue some of those projects they've been doing, as long as our students get to the same place. That's what the Common Core is about. It's not about prescriptive curriculum. It's not about exactly how to teach. It's about where students need to be by the time the teaching is done. You know, Common Core is important to me on two levels. First, as a teacher, it's important that I know where my students need to be by the time they leave my classroom. I need to know that I'm able to get them to a position where they're going to be competitive in the next global market. Whatever college or career that they go into, whether that's four-year universities, 2 years, technical schools, trade schools, whatever it happens to be, I need to make sure that they're ready for that. As a teacher, I need to make sure that if one of my students decides to transfer to another school, that they're going to be prepared to succeed in that school just like they were prepared to succeed in my school. So as a teacher, Common Core is huge. But as a parent, Common Core is huge too. What if I change my family dynamic sometime in the future, and suddenly when my son is in 6th or 7th grade, we decide to move to another state? I want to make sure that he's prepared for that state just like he is for Washington State. I want to make sure that there's a commonality about where my students should be. It's not that they learned exactly the same way to do things, not that they learned exactly the same content, but if they do transfer to other places, they can talk about the same things in general. They have the same skills, they have the same backgrounds. That's what I want to make sure my students have. So there's been a lot of talk about being college and career ready. And what does that really mean? You know, as an educator, that means that I'm going to prepare my students for whatever comes next for them. If that means trade school, if that means technical school, if that means the military, universities, whatever it means, I've got to make sure that they're ready for the next level. As such, I set my standards high for every single one of my students. I've got to imagine that every one of my students has the ability to do absolutely anything that they want to do. You know, to me, I say a little personal story to it. Is I say, you know what? I'm going to treat my students as though they might be a member of my family someday. You know, I've got a young son, I've got a young daughter. And who's to say that one of these students someday might not end up marrying into my family? After all, I married a teacher's daughter. You know, so at some point, we've got to make sure that our standards for every single student, for every single one of our next members of our society, are set high enough that they can enter into the next phase of their life, whatever phase that is. That's what college and career ready means to me. It means setting standards high for every single one of my students to make sure that they have the ability and the opportunity to reach as high as they want. You know, one of the best questions I get as a science teacher is, why, when am I ever going to use this, and why do I care? You know, I mean, I think every student from the dawn of time has had to ask that question. And that question comes up for Common Core as well. You know, as a teacher, I need to show my students relevance on all levels. I need to be relevant in their lives. I need to teach subject matter that is relevant to their future and to their current lives. I need to make sure that what I'm showing them, simply stated, matters. So as we discuss the Common Core, I say, well, we have a standard set for you here. I need to make sure that you're able to do this so that the future can happen. But if that's the only way that you approach it, and tell kids, well, you need to know it for later, you need to know it for later, you're not going to get very far with a high school kid or a middle school kid for that matter. Instead, you say, well, it's going to get you to this point here in the future, but it's also going to get you here right now, today. And this is what we're going to use it for in our class. It gives me the opportunity to focus on, hey, let's do something. You know, in teaching, you can say it, you can show it, or you can let the kids do it. And the more the kids do it, the more they realize that there's something that matters. There's a relevance to that education. Common Core helps us point that direction. So Common Core, is it going to solve all of our problems in education? No, because that's not what it is. Common Core gives us standards to aim for. It gives us standards to get all of our students ready for and hopefully get them to the same place before they leave our educational system. But Common Core doesn't have all the answers. It's a tool in the kit that educators have. It's a piece of the puzzle. You know, at the end of the day, I teach students. I don't teach content. I don't teach numbers. I don't teach seats. I teach people. And when you're teaching a person, there's so much more that goes into that. I've got to develop a positive relationship with them. I've got to learn about their backgrounds. I've got to learn about what's important in their families. And I've got to meld that all together. Common Core doesn't address everything in education, but it gives us a great avenue to approach. It gives us a great direction to make sure that all of our students are headed in. So is it going to solve everything? No, but it's certainly going to help. I've got a lot of tools in my box. That's just another one.